The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by Ascen. Ascen is a top employer of record in North America that exclusively helps staffing and recruitment agencies hire contractors compliantly throughout the US and Canada. Ascen's all-in-one white-label platform handles onboarding, timesheets, payroll, benefits, insurance, invoicing, and optional financing so you can grow quickly in the US and Canada. Start growing your staffing agency in the US today with Ascen. Visit us at ascen.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliott Manning, the Managing Director of Cayman Recruitment Group. This is episode 100. I've been doing this now, which is crazy to say, for about 5 years. When I started the podcast in lockdown in 2019, I spoke to someone, Sean Anderson at Hoxo Media, who was doing a course for founders to learn how to do more branding, more social media awareness, and how to do a podcast. And since then, I became a bit addicted to it and haven't stopped. And I've now got to 100 episodes. The season 3 has been all about the USA. We've got sponsorship on the podcast. We're with Ascen, North American employer of record, fantastic business. And yeah, every month we've got 2 episodes coming out. This is just wild, 100 episodes. But right, on to this one. We've got a very special guest, someone that I work with every day. I feel like every day of the week rather than Monday to Friday, who is working with me on a new business venture that we launched last year. It's called Vertrou Outsourcing, or in Afrikaans, Vertrou. Is that right? Vertrou. Tammy will correct me. I still have to correct myself with my own business name. And this episode's all about. We'll get it right. This episode's all about the US market, and how the recruitment industry is changing and developing, where outsourcing is becoming a huge factor. So we wanted to talk to you guys that are listening to this episode around what outsourcing means, what it can do for your business in the US, how it can transform businesses in the UK that are operating in the US at the same time, and what the benefits are of the outsource offshore models. So Tammy, I'll let you do an intro of yourself properly, because I've only just said your name.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Really excited to be a part of the 100th episode. It's actually my first podcast, believe it or not. So this is nerve-wracking and exciting at the same time. But yeah, it's I've been with Cayman Recruitment for going on 2 years now. Feels like a lot longer than that, to be honest with you. In a good way, Elliott, not a bad way. But been in recruitment for 10 years now, and currently head up the Vertrou and the Cayman team in the UK and SA. I think the journey that we started on last year, October, has just boomed since then. Initially started on the UK desk. And we saw big markets for the SA market, and a lot of our clients wanting to do what Elliott's done, hiring me in South Africa. So that's kind of where I started my journey and where I currently am with Vertrou/Cayman. But really excited to be here today.
Amazing. So look, I mean, outsourcing, offshoring, we can go into more detail around it, but why it's come about, how it's come about, is probably more important, I think, for now, and how people in the US or doing the US can benefit. And I think it all started with our own business. In 2023, I decided that we needed to change up our whole resource model in the business for our market, to cover the UK and the USA on a resource support. So found Tammy in South Africa in September, October 2023. Went ahead with the move to start looking at how we can build a delivery function in South Africa, and just kind of went from there. And then last year, it just kind of kicked off. There was a lot of companies that were asking us multiple questions, why South Africa? How have you done it in South Africa? What's the benefits of South Africa? So naturally, we just transitioned our business and pivoted to a point where we can support our clients with what we've done, and then opened up our business. But I think, Tammy, what are the key elements of outsourcing to you? What's the biggest benefits for a recruitment company to outsource, their staff? If they're in America, what are the benefits?
Yeah, I think, minus the cost saving that we'll obviously go into a bit later, it's the talent that you get in South Africa. I think it's untouched. It's not a saturated market in South Africa where you've got 1,000 agencies working and operating across the markets. I think you're getting really good quality, driven individuals that are willing to put in the hard work. I think a lot of people think, oh, US and hours in South Africa. And, that doesn't phase South African
Yeah.
individuals as well. So I think, we're adaptable in that sense. A lot of people prefer working those hours, to be honest with you. So I think it's a talent that you get. It's untouched. There's a lot of plug and play individuals in the market as well. So you actually have clients already operating in South Africa where you can have a plug and play individual. So as much as everyone thinks it's a new thing, there are people that are already doing it. So you're getting into a market where, you're getting raw, real talent for a good price.
Yeah, I think the one thing that business owners are skeptical of, and look, we speak to what,
Mm.
10 to 20 a week, I reckon.
Yeah,
We always, they're not aware of this concept. They're not aware that there's this opportunity, in
yeah,
these markets. They're not aware that they can have someone in South Africa who already recruits into the US market,
yeah,
that knows how things work in the US,
yeah.
that works the hours, and they don't know that the talent's there. So when we explain to them that, look, we can prove to you that there is this talent there, they become really quite surprised. But
Yeah.
what are you finding with recruiters in South Africa doing the US market? Can you go into a bit more about that, other than, of course, that they like to work the hours?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think anyone in South Africa that gets an opportunity to work international is the biggest buy-in in itself. And I think as soon as they have the opportunity to tap into international markets, or they're already working for US firms in South Africa, I think the biggest attraction is that they get to work, the cultures aren't that different. And I think
Mm.
they are able to actually converse with them really easy. In the US, minus the hours, they enjoy that high-driven sales culture and environment, which a lot of American firms have. And that's really attracted to individuals in South Africa as well. And I think just the ability to really take their careers forward, working a South African market, working international is two very, very different avenues that someone can take in their career. And I think this really broadens their scope to be able to better their careers and take their career progressions forward.
Yeah, I think that, look, we've had positions coming through from businesses where they're predominantly resource focused,
Yeah.
they're admin focused. But the one that we've had a lot more coming through of is, recruitment companies getting sales focused people,
Yes.
based in South Africa, that do the US market and they sit there and doing the
Hmm.
business development,
Yep.
kind of like an SDR concept. They're doing the sales development, but ultimately, they're opening up the doors, and then the guys and girls in America are going to maybe meet the clients, or, jump on
Yeah.
the call with them to take over. And it's a concept that's worked really well. It's a lot more cost
Mhm.
effective, obviously, from an American salary, on average at this level is probably between 60 and $80,000. They're going to
Yeah.
be spending in the region of between 30 and $40,000 in South
Yeah.
Africa per annum
Yeah.
to get this person on without any tax implications at the same time. And I think
That.
that's something we've had to educate a lot of businesses on, that we have been able to successfully, succeed in finding.
Yeah.
But what else? I mean, look, the other thing as well, in my opinion, when we're dealing with the outsourcing models, there's a lot of good talent that comes out of the Philippines, Mauritius,
Yes.
Asia, and also the LATAM region, South America. But there's something, in my, again, opinion, I'm going to be biased because we're doing it ourselves and it's our business, but there's look, the culture on the South Africa side of things, it reminds me, it's very American. It's
Mm.
very, very similar to America, especially where we're based in Bloberg in Western Cape. It's very much like California. And
Yeah.
ultimately the culture is very similar. The English language is extremely, strong. Ultimately, they understand the international kind of differences, in South
Yeah.
Africa. But I think it's the work ethic that's probably the most biggest thing that we've noticed, and
Yeah.
successfully for our clients at the same time.
Definitely, 100%. I mean, take it an example. We've had that project kickoff where we placed seven or now probably 10 individuals, and within 2 weeks, these girls are doing placements. Like, I think the grits and the grind's definitely there from individuals. They want to put in the hard work, they want to be successful, they want to make money, and no better way to make money than in dollars. So I think it's
Yeah.
a really attractive piece to individuals.
Yeah. And for like companies in the UK, we've taken on a few
Mhm.
businesses recently who are doing the US market from the UK. They
Yes.
are trying to find other avenues to, like, without having to spend so much money on salaries to kind of get things going. There's not enough
Yeah.
talent in the UK that will work the US hours, and it's not
Mhm.
something that's reliable or stable. So they're using South Africans to do that. Actually, that's really funny. I actually had a call with a founder last week, someone that I've known in the market. They really big in the US, doing really well.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with them, and I was like, can we, help you with the US? Like, what's going on over there? He's like, Elliot, my whole US business is in South Africa. We don't have a single member of staff in the US, and it's all in
So,
SA. And I was like,
yeah.
we had no idea.
Yeah.
All of his staff have got, their locations set to New York or Austin
Yeah.
or whatever it is, but none of them are in the US. And I was like, this is incredible. And they've had a very successful stint in doing that. Their profit margins are massive,
Yeah.
and it works really well. So, look, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that the UK companies, European companies that want to do the US, that don't necessarily want to spend the money on doing it with boots on the ground, they can do it from South Africa and get the same
Yeah.
results, if not better, um,
Exactly.
especially financially as well. Um, so let's talk about, Tammy, the onboarding process. How does it work for a recruitment company or a firm in general that wants to look at outsourcing? What's the process with Vertrou, and from the minute that they say, let's go, what happens?
Yeah, and I think that's something that makes us really unique is our process that we've got and our workflow. So at the moment, as soon as we've got the thumbs up to go ahead on hiring, we have a formal onboarding call where we pretty much chat through a formal job brief, what the client likes, what they don't like, get all the non-negotiables, and then we start our hunt and we get going. I would say our general turnaround with CVs is maximum 72 hours. If we've got the people on our books, then definitely we have them there ready to go. If it's a
Yeah.
different search, then we'll let them know upfront that we need to go to market and find
And
these
just
people.
and
Yeah,
just on that, the luxury of this, and for the listeners, they're not
yeah,
competing with 15 other agencies trying to get the same
yeah.
candidate. The candidate hasn't got 10
Literally.
interviews on the go at the moment, and it's kind of like every candidate we've been sending to clients is predominantly exclusively with them as first refusal, no matter what, just because that's the way
Yeah.
the market is that right?
Exactly. No, 100%. We're not a saturated country of rec to rec, so it's actually a really good blessing in disguise.
Yes.
So yeah, once we've had the onboarding call, the team and I go to market. We find your individual. Depending on your interview process, we will then wrap up that hire for yourselves. Once you've indicated who you're hiring, we've got a designated Vertrou administrator that works for our business, and she reaches out for all of our EOR onboarding. It's a really good, seamless process. We're there to help you, guide you with any questions you've got with the onboarding of yourself to the EOR. Everything is done in a step-by-step manner and a step-by-step routine, and we are there for you every single step of the way. So it's doing a new starter form, SLA agreements, and once that's all done, we get a draft contract done. On your approval, it's then sent to the candidate, and so the workflow starts. Once that candidate is then onboarded, your client will receive a monthly invoice from Jen, again, our Vertrou administrator, between the 15th and 17th of every month. Where you get to check your invoices, the pay slips of that candidate. We actually send pay slips on behalf of the clients unless they want to do that themselves. So it's a really good process. Everything is done in a routine manner, and every month we have our check-ins as well to make sure everyone's happy, everyone's been onboarded properly, and any questions that arise in between the time periods, we're always there as well. So
Yeah.
that's our current
Perfect.
process.
Yeah, we really do make sure that we're holding the business's hand throughout the whole process. We provide in the onboarding pack information around HR
Yeah,
legislation, employment law, like absolutely everything, so that they don't miss a thing. But the benefit of working with us is that, not only do we manage the payroll and the employment of the person, we also can help out with any HR issues at one phone call, any kind of, worst case scenario, legal issues as well on employment, as well. So let's just go on to that. Because when people ask me about South Africa, they always say, like, what are the risks? What are the challenges that I might face? What with
yeah,
outsourcing? Look, just to reiterate, guys, this is not an offshoring business. We don't have people in our office that are servicing you with CVs and that kind of thing. That's not what we do.
mm,
We're employing the people on your behalf and then outsourcing them to work for you, and then your responsibility. But at the same time, as the risk is also ours, in that, from the get-go. But,
yeah,
let's talk about the challenges. So one of them is about, South African employment law. And I want to just make sure that everyone's aware of this. we've luckily, since we set up the business, we haven't had a single issue with any problems or anything, in the last 4 or 5 months. Our dropout ratio is less than 5%, and we've placed with a hell of a lot of companies, and the dropouts are just purely on the basis of it may be just the wrong company for them, or they've got a personal situation going on. Nothing,
Yeah.
untoward around kind of performance as such, which is, really positive. But it's kind of like the UK law. So 2026, April 2026, the UK law is going to be changing to day one employment, law where, you can't just get rid of someone, just because you feel like it in their first week or month or 6 months of employment, as long as it's before that 2 year kind of like that barrier, for example. In South Africa, it's already like day one employment right now. So if someone is underperforming, as a recruitment business, there's a tendency in the past, maybe hopefully it's changed now, that people will just kind of get let go very quickly, walked out the door, in front of everybody in the office, hold their hand, walk them out the door, make sure they leave the building. In SA, you can't do that. It's very different. It's very much more controlled process. It's all done on, well, I'll let you explain, Tammy, because you know it better than I do.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely that. It's day one employee rights. And to be honest, it's not as complicated as everyone makes it out to be, always cutthroat and ruthless. I think it's just following the necessary steps. So again, a benefit of partnering with us is that we provide you with that HR legislation pack. You have us on speed dial. So as soon as you identify, any performance issues or something's going on that you need to raise awareness with, you immediately notify myself or our administrator. We reach out to the EOR. We then set up a formal meeting to discuss, your concerns or anything that you want to get addressed with that individual, and they actually help us from that perspective. So they've got a designated labor consultant, which makes our lives a lot easier. We've got someone to help with the process of exiting an employee during a probation period, after probation period, what steps need to be taken and how those will look. So
Yeah.
it's actually a really smooth process. It's just people make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, I think everyone's just cautious, right? And that's the main
Yeah.
thing here.
Yeah.
But there's no need to be, it's proven in the base that we just never had to have that as a concern.
Yeah.
But that's probably the only thing I would say people need to be aware of, is that difference, which is not necessarily a challenge or negative, but something just to kind of maybe change around how things are dealt with and done. Let's go on to the most important topic, Tammy. Outsourcing has got that big cost saving aspect to it, which businesses need to know because it's affecting their bottom line, which is why they do this.
Yeah.
Where everyone in the market is looking at, okay, well, what does that mean for me? So let's break down some examples, right? So if you were to hire
Yeah.
a recruitment consultant in London, a
Hmm.
360 recruiter, you're looking at paying around what, 35K on average on a salary.
Yeah. 2 years
For some,
experience
with
nowadays.
a couple of years experience, and also someone that's got all of the tax. You got to pay tax. You got to worry about the NI. You've got all these other costs. Let's call it upwards of 40K for that hire, right?
Yeah.
Give or take. In South Africa, for the same thing, how much are they going to spend for a 360 recruiter with more than 2 years experience?
Yeah, well, I think I always say the happy medium with that experience is £1,500 a month as a basic salary. Ali might need to help me with my maths there. But I think the happy medium is £1,500 per annum. We always say like the most that you should be paying for someone with 3 to 5 years plus experience is in the region of 22 to 25,000 pounds per annum. So that's getting someone with a really good experience that can plug into your market, has the relevant market knowledge and experience that can get going from day
Yeah.
one.
And that's a
Yeah.
360. So let's go on to the resource and delivery side of it now. So if you have got loads of roles, you've got loads of projects,
Yeah.
you've got endless amounts of jobs, you need support on it, whether it's for 6 months or ongoing. A
Yes.
delivery consultant in the UK is looking at costing around 30 grand on average, 35K again. In the
Yeah.
US, you're looking at spending about 60, $70,000. In
Yeah.
South Africa, am I right in saying that your happy medium, your average is about 1,100, 1,200 pounds
Yes.
a month? Yeah.
100%. Should be 15 to 16,000 per year.
Yeah, and that's kind
Yeah.
of like maybe at a top end, which is quite high, but then there's no NI, there's no cover of tax, or there's nothing else on
Yeah.
top of that. So for an American business or a UK business to look at delivery options, this is absolutely a no-brainer. For good 360 proven recruiters, again, you're saving in the region of about 10, 15 grand a year. Um,
Hmm.
and then you've got salespeople. Salespeople are pretty much in between those two that we've just said. They're not far off the
Yeah.
360 level. Um, but then American recruiters come with a little bit of a premium, though, right? A little bit
Yeah.
of a premium because of the hours that they work. Whether they're doing, 2 in the afternoon till 11 o'clock at night. We've
Hmm.
had a recruiter that you placed. I remember she was doing like 10 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning or something crazy on
Yeah.
the West Coast.
California
You know,
hours.
yeah. So it can come through, but you're looking at spending. For those recruiters, it comes in at around about $2,200 a month, I would say,
Yes.
as an average, which is what, about
Yeah.
1,900 pound a month. Still extremely good cost perspective, but ultimately that's a good salary in the US. So
Yeah.
hopefully it gives you a bit of an idea. Payroll costs are pretty much about a grand a year. There's not a lot there
Yeah.
for your costing on that aspect. And then there's the fees and that's everything separately, which can be discussed. But commission. How do you compensate? How do we, do commission in South Africa? It's whatever you guys are doing in the UK or US or wherever else you are in
Yeah.
the world in Europe. Don't look at anything different. Just whatever structure you've got implemented on commission, make sure it's the same thing. Incentivize, is the reason why they're working for international businesses because the money's better. So keep the
Yeah.
incentives where they are, keep things moving in that direction. You know, back office staff, whether you're looking for operational people, admin people, finance, marketing, HR,
Yep.
social media, we've done everything, even data administration and data entry. The talent is plug and play. So if you're working off of the likes of, Cherie, Bullhorn, um, Atlas, Recruit CRM, you will find someone in South Africa that already has worked on those CRM systems that knows how they operate and that can come and join your business from day one and actually get going with it. So,
Yeah.
all in all, there's a lot more positives in outsourcing for US
Yes.
businesses, international businesses, especially if you're doing the US market. It's a huge, huge change in the way that the market's going and the difference, and something you should look at altogether. Is there anything I've missed, Tammy?
No, I think you've covered pretty much all the pointers. And I think, the benefits of working with us is that we are, like you said, we're not just an outsourcing business, but we're there with them through every single step of the journey. So
Mm,
that's the main objective of having created the brand, is so that we've got, people, boots on the ground in South Africa that can give you that first-hand experience and tell you exactly how you and I have done things and how things kicked off here. So, we've lived and breathed it ourselves, so we know how to operate around it.
Yeah, I think that's what sets us aside from a lot of outsourcing firms is that we're doing it
Yeah.
ourselves. We've been through the motions of every aspect of it. We understand the industry more
Yeah.
than anybody, in my opinion, and we know what needs to be done. And our team are phenomenal. We've got very strong, experienced people in the business that know exactly what they're doing. They've all come from agency recruitment backgrounds. They all get it and they know what to do. Um,
Yeah.
Look, if anyone's got any questions, anything that they want to know, please reach out to Tammy, reach out to myself. Let us help you with, how to strategize and look at your outsourcing model for the US business and what you're trying to achieve across any areas of it. Tammy, thank you very much for jumping on the podcast with me. You didn't really have a choice, to be honest, but I appreciate you jumping on anyway. No, look, this is a very special episode, the 100th. I'm overwhelmed with it all. It's been amazing. Thank you for every person that's listened to this podcast, all the thousands that have jumped on and downloaded it across all platforms, and keep listening in. This is not going to stop here. The US is getting bigger and stronger, and it's actually become more reliable for businesses now to do the US market. So let us help you try and work a way around that. And I look forward to connecting with everyone very soon. Tammy, thanks very much again, and I'll catch up with you later.
Thanks, Al. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.